All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. I know that this is an English session. I always like to make sure that I capture everybody. So, buenas noches and good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you all to cover the balance, the topic of finding balance with you all. And there are a lot of slides in this presentation. So, I'm gonna ask for your patience as we navigate this slide deck. There are a couple of slides that kind of ask you to be active in the chat. So it's really early in the beginning of the presentation, but I again I'll see how it goes. If I see that we're getting participation, we'll have a discussion. If not, we'll just move along given the number of slides. But um, I am, by day, I am the senior director of the Trio Pre-University programs, and in the evenings and after work hours, I am also a facilitator and faculty member for Study Smart Tutors. Pleasure to be here with you all. So let's go ahead and get started with finding balance. Um, the mission of our organization, or of our company, is to collaborate with partners such as San Jose Unified School District to promote educational equity, access, and success by providing a diverse range of workshops for you all. Our workshops are typically for students, but we've expanded our portfolio to make sure that we support teams, families, and anybody that could use the work that we do. So very happy to be here with you all today. In terms of our community agreements, come as you are. Everything is an invitation. Please utilize the chat. I don't think you have the capability to speak through this webinar, but again, I'll be monitoring the chat back and forth. It is a window that kind of becomes a bit of a nuisance on my slides, but I will open it from time to time just to make sure that nothing is there. And I encourage you to welcome new experiences. Be patient with the material, and I really do hope that you get a lot out of today. The learning goal for the workshop is to establish is for our participants to learn how to establish expectations within their homes and how establishing those clear expectations with our children and really with ourselves lead to a better work-life balance, which at the end allows us to spend more time with the ones we love and allows us to be more of an impact. So I hope that you're able to make the connection throughout tonight. So the agenda for tonight, there is a family questionnaire. Again, there's 3 to 4 slides on it. I won't spend too much time if I don't see a lot of engagement in the chat. We'll go over what to expect as an adult, you as a parent, when establishing expectations with the children in your home, with your loved ones. We'll go over some choices versus instructions in terms of what differentiates our communication and what makes how we ask our children to do something a choice versus an instruction. We're going to go cover some of those important points, and then we'll get into, hopefully, into talking about the importance of work-life balance, what that means for us, and how we correlate that to a better engagement and a better just experience with the ones we loved more often when we're able to do that. Okay, so today's resources are here. This link, I will leave this up for about a few seconds just so that you all can make a note of it. If you click that link, it's not a clickable link. If you take a picture of that link and if you enter it into a URL window, a browser, you should be able to have an access to today's materials for you as the participant. So I encourage you to do that. I believe in the past, Rigo has also helped me add it in the chat as a link so that you can just click on it. So Rigo, if you're there and if you're able to do that, I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right. So let's start off by engaging a little bit with this family questionnaire. Does your family establish expectations? Like, do you as a household, do you as parents, do you all establish expectations with your kids? Go ahead and use the chat box. A simple yes or no will do. I just want to see how much engagement we have here. And again, this chat is available to everyone. Um, as you are thinking about that, think about naming one or two expectations in your home that you establish with your children. Um, this can be something as simple as chores, duties and responsibilities, helping with things, um, even their own personal ones. So if you have any, please feel free to type those. I don't see any coming in now, so I will keep an eye on it. I'll keep monitoring that. I know for a fact that you as parents have expectations, and I know you could probably think of a couple. Thank you, Rigo, for sharing those resources. Um, are your students compliant within expectations established for them now? Okay. So maybe think about it. The expectations that you have at home, are they being observed? Are they being executed? Are you happy with the relationship and the communication that you have with your children in terms of what is expected of them? Okay, so just think about that. Daily chores. I like that. Thank you, Michelle, for contributing. Yeah, we all had daily chores. I had daily chores when I was a kid. My mom had a very strict set of rules on the weekends when we woke up and all I could think about was watching cartoons on a Saturday. She would allow us to watch a couple of hours of cartoons, but right about 9 a.m. it was time to help her with the chores in the house. Yeah, keeping the room clean, something as simple as that, and how you express that to your children is hopefully something that we'll be able to explore tonight. And hopefully, y'all are doing a great job. I'm sure y'all are doing a good job. All right, so think about this now. When they don't execute, when they don't follow through on things, do you have consequences? Are those consequences clearly communicated? Making sure that their grades are kept up for them and continue to play sports. Exactly. Their schools won't let them play sports without them having good grades, right? So similar to that, like we have to have our own expectations at the house. Thank you very much for contributing to that, Joey. But now think about the consequences that you have in place for your household when they don't comply or they don't follow through. I'm sure you all have consequences or a process, a protocol. Do you have struggles with these or challenges with having your children follow through? Screen time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They lose out on their screen time if they don't follow through. Yeah, more. Isn't it crazy? I used to not be allowed. I used to not be allowed to go out and play. And maybe some of you all on this webinar, if we didn't do our homework, if we didn't do our chores, we couldn't go out and play. Now we limit screen time. How times have changed. Um, so I want you to just think about it, right? Like if you have struggles or challenges, um, just think about those struggles and those challenges as we facilitate this information. And hopefully I'm able to answer some of these or at least give you some tools that you can take moving forward to implement. All right. Um, Also, when they are compliant, when they do follow through with their things, think about whatever reward system. How do you incentivize that? How do you reward them? How do you say thank you to your children for following up on the things that they're supposed to? All right, so think about those things as we navigate this presentation. Um, how do you all establish your expectations at home? Okay, um, every family is different. Every member of our family is different. Um, I have six siblings and I'm sorry, I have five siblings. It's six of us total. Every single one of us brought something a little bit different for mom and dad, right? So think about how you establish those expectations. Let's get into some of this here. I'm going to close out my chat for now. Things that you should expect when establishing these expectations. Um, Establishing your expectations involves letting your students know exactly what you want them to say or do. And I can't emphasize how specific you have to be. Communication is one of the hardest things that organizations, um, businesses deal with amongst employees. It is the same thing at home. Okay. Communicating in general terms, in specific terms, is something that you have to do with your children every single time you want to lay out an expectation. All right. We all have them. We all have these expectations, and sometimes what keeps students from actually being compliant and following through with their responsibilities is because our busy schedules, um, our pace of life, the things that we have going on in ourselves will sometimes um, lead to an unclear expectation or a confusing expectation. So we have to be certain that we are providing the greatest level of detail on how we want things done, when we want them done, how we want someone to react or act or carry themselves when we want them to do that. Okay, so keep that in mind. Um, Expectations are influenced by a variety of different issues. We all come from different households, different families, perhaps different traditions and different cultures. So all of those things will lead to our expectations being individually a little bit different from everybody else's. And that's something that we need to communicate to our children. Not necessarily to say that we are, that we do things different or that they are different, but they need to understand that whatever you're setting forward is what's expected of your household, right? So allowing those cultural norms, those societal norms, those laws, those rules that we have, that social etiquette, that expectation of how to be socially equipped on how to act in certain places, all that can be established at home. And again, understanding very clearly that different families have different expectations and their own values. So it's important to give that a place. Okay. When establishing expectations, there are things that influence um, the life of these expectations. So as our children grow, as our children develop, so too will the expectations. And I think that's something that is, pretty consistently applicable across the board, regardless of culture, regardless of societal norms, regardless of our family's traditions. Our children will grow, our children will develop, our children's points of views will change. And so with that, we have to be nimble as parents to make sure that we are adapting to not just the things that the norms or the societal um things that are affecting them. We also have to make sure that they're just simply getting older. They're maturing, and so we have to evolve with that. Okay, and again, expectations vary depending on where we are, environments, circumstances. How we act when we go to a baseball game is completely different of how we act when we go to church. It's completely different of how we act when we go to dinner at somebody's house. It's completely different to how your students behave in the classroom. In fact, a lot of your students have multiple teachers. I'm sure that they act differently with each teacher throughout their day. Why? Because teachers have certain expectations, and even though they're common, they have a different way of communicating those to them. So I say this to ensure that when you are establishing these expectations, expect all the variances that are already a part of your child's life, expect all the variances that are a part of society, right? To make sure that when you communicate your expectations, you are constant, you are consistent. I'm going to do a quick check on the chat just to make sure I am not missing anything. Nothing so far. Okay, let's continue talking about what to expect when establishing expectations. We as a household make priority decisions and we make determinations for how we want our children to behave, right? Our families have values that are important to us. And sometimes, usually, most of the time, we want our children to behave in a certain way because it's representative of their home. I work with students, I work with high school students primarily. And I always remind them when we're out on trips, when we're out on college tours, um, the behaviors that are important for me are behaviors that are representative, positive representations of their of our program first and foremost. I remind them that they are representing their school, and I remind them that they are representing their communities, but more importantly, they're representing their families. So I tell them, I expect you to behave on this trip with the same level of expectation that your parents have for you, when you're supposed to be on your P's and Q's, and you're supposed to be there engaged, absorbing the information, absorbing the knowledge, but most importantly, being respectful about the entire process, right? So, which behaviors lead to the biggest bang for the smallest buck, right? So, if my child would only do X, things would be so much better. So as parents, if we can identify that X, um, that X is probably what's important to us. That X is that value that's probably, man, if I want to make sure that my children are seen in this light, or I want them to be this type of person in society. So that's important to make mention. All right. Um, Establishing expectations is an important aspect of parenting. I'm sure by now you've caught on to that. That's kind of one of the major driving themes of this presentation. But I want you to think about something. What adults believe about a young person's capacity often determines what will be achieved. So the more we expect from our loved ones, our little ones, the more their capacity is to act in that light. If we don't set any expectations for them, they will act accordingly. If we let them get away with just whatever they want to do, they will act accordingly. At the end of the day, we are the purveyors of the knowledge and the purveyors of the expectations. So let's be sure to make sure that we offer that. Be clear about what you expect. All right. And I already mentioned in a previous slide, we need to be specific in general terms and in specific terms. Like we just need to be clear about what we want, right? So define exactly what you expect your child to say or to do to meet those expectations. Um, I can't emphasize how important it is to be clear, many times to be concise, sometimes less is more. That level of clarity, especially when they're younger, is incredibly important. You have to take into consideration their age, right? And their understanding. So, concise, especially when they're younger, the complexity can evolve as they get older. In fact, there will be a point where you give them actual ownership or negotiation power of those expectations, and it's something that is incredibly healthy for them and their development as growing young people. All right, so I can't emphasize how important this is. When we establish expectations, we as the adults, we as the parents, we need to make sure that we follow our own expectations ourselves. We need to model that behavior. We need to make sure that we encourage other family members or other grown-ups that are a part of the household to do the same. When people come over to our house, there's nothing wrong with I'll give you an example. When I had my first daughter, you know, my mother would, I'm pretty sure she baby talked to all of us. Well, here's this teacher, right? I was a teacher, and so I took child development classes and all this, and so I understood that it was important for my child to hear the language spoken as it was meant to be spoken, not baby talk, because then they were going to learn that, right? And I remember telling that to my mom. Oh my gosh, she just about disown me in that moment, right? But I told her, Mom, I say this with love. Like she understands you. I want her to speak the way you speak. Like I don't want her to learn words in a funny way. Like she's gonna speak the way she hears the language spoken. So I want you to model that behavior for me, right? And yeah, it was difficult to have the conversation with my mom, but it's important to set those rules when guests come over to the house. If you have expectations, let them know that you need that to be modeled, especially when we have little ones around. Okay. Um, when establishing expectations, it's very equally important to celebrate the successes, right? And celebrating and incentivizing is going to look different depending on how old your child is. Um, that is going to be the driver, but also it's very important. Make sure you celebrate. Give praise when praise is earned. Um, Equally important as the clarity in the expectation. What else to expect when establishing expectations? Um, this is where we get into the conversation of understanding the difference between giving choices versus giving instructions, right? Like it's important for us as the adults to differentiate whether uh, we're giving our child the option to do something or telling them to do something because it is required for them to perform whatever it is that we want them to perform, right? It's important to note that choices begin with words like, would you like? Which one? And can you? And I'll give you an example. My wife's not here yet, so my wife is notorious for asking our children, do you want to help me with the kitchen? Right? Well, my kids are gonna be like, no, mom, I don't want to help you. I'm doing my homework. Right? If my wife simply said something like, hey, I need you to take 5 minutes away from what you're doing. I need your help in this kitchen right now. Like it's gonna take you 2 minutes. I need these clean dishes in that drawer. You'll be done in 2 minutes. You can go back to your homework, right? If we explain something with that level of clarity, not only are they not going to fight you through it, because they're going to understand, okay, they're telling me I need to stop doing my homework for 5 minutes to get these dishes done, right? Now, that's just an example that I used, but think about all the different variations of when that actually takes place, right? Do you, as a parent, are you asking them, can you help me? Do you want to help me? Uh, it's that you're giving them the choice, right? And sometimes when you give them the choice is good, but sometimes when we're setting expectations, choice isn't the best strategy. So understanding the difference when you're communicating with your children, am I giving them an option, a choice, or am I instructing them? When you can, without having to think about it, just execute the difference between those two, it's going to be much easier for you to establish these expectations. Okay. Um, Instructions provide options as I shared, right? So something an example of giving an instruction, please start your homework now, right? Okay, that's an example. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to look at the chat. Anything? I don't see anything. Okay, I will go back to the slide deck. I hope this is making sense for you all. Um, all right. Let's practice a little bit here, okay? And if I'll open up the chat just to see if we get some engagement. Um, we'll go for I'll just ask you yes or no. All right. So in terms of the following statements, if you think it's a choice, right? Yes. If you think it's an instruction, right? No. Okay. I know it kind of doesn't make sense, but for the sake of minimizing the amount of stuff you have to type out. The first statement, Maria, can you do your homework, please? Um, is that a choice? Yes, choice. No, if it's an instruction. What do you all think? Okay. As you start typing those up, I'm going to look at the other one. I need you to log into your classes on time. All right. Think about how that sounds. Um, okay. The first one was a choice. It was a choice. Um, okay. Thank you for participating in the chat. I see that. Okay. How about the second one? I need you to log into your classes on time. Is that a choice or is that an instruction? No would be yeah, it's not a choice. That's an instruction. Johnny, please do your homework now. Also not a choice. That's very clear. I need you to do your homework now. Um, you can either do your work sitting at the desk or sitting at the table. How about that one? Yes for choice, no for instruction. What does everybody think? You can either do your work sitting at your desk or sitting at the table. So I know it sounds like a choice, but the driving part here is you're doing the work. Whether you do it sitting at the table or whether you do it sitting at your desk, you're doing your work, right? So to me, that is an instruction. It's I wouldn't necessarily phrase it that way, but especially with a younger child, you want to be as specific as possible. They are given a choice to do an instruction. Yeah. Would you like to eat before starting your schoolwork or after? That to me sounds more like a choice, right? You're going to give them the possibility of doing one or the other. Please keep your work area clean. That's very straight and to the point. That is something that would work really well with an adolescent. That is something that would work really well with a teenager. Um, just think about these things as we phrase our instructions, our expectations. Think about these areas, okay? All right. It's important when establishing expectations to set deadlines and to set criteria. So let your children know when tasks must be completed and how they need to be completed, how they need to be performed, right? I use the example of when I did this workshop in Spanish that my mom was notorious for like asking us, "Hey, help me grab a towel." And I ask her, "Yes, mom, where's the towel?" "In the drawer." There's like 10 drawers, right? Like in the kitchen. And that's just the way she worked. So I had to navigate like making sure that I found it as quickly as possible. But you know, I love my mom, but don't do what my mom would do. Like if you know it's like, hey, there's a towel in the top drawer on the right. Can you please grab that for me? Right? Like that's different than like, hey, give me the towel. It's in the drawer, right? So learning how to set the exact criteria is very helpful. So the example that they give is actually really succinct and a good example. All of the clothes in the laundry basket must end up in your drawers, right? I would include, hey, you need to make sure that all those clothes are folded and in your drawer before you go to bed tonight, right? Like that gives it a more succinct time. So thinking about that communication is important. The other one, hey, we're leaving at 3:05, right? And I need you to be in the car at that time. Like there, you don't have an option. Like you're coming with, and you need to make sure that it gets done. So this is a good way of making sure that when establishing expectations, you are setting not just the criteria, but you're setting a deadline to make sure that the expectation is met. You're setting your children up for success when you give them those options. Okay. It's important to provide environmental cues, and these vary depending on the age of your child. Um, it talks about like, sometimes setting visual reminders or expectations. I have one rule like in our household, in our kitchen, we have a rule where if you use a dish, you wash it, right? And there's a sign that says, you use it, you wash it. That's simple. And that is for everyone. That is for the guests that come to my house. That is for it's mainly for my kids, but my guests always look at it. It's like, oh, that's cool. You have instructions there. And I kind of hint like, yeah, it's for you too, right? But it's one of those things where I have that visual reminder. Um, my mom used to ask us to pray more when we were growing up, and so she would put all these prayers in the bathroom, right? And it was the funniest thing in the world, but it got me to read those prayers. And everybody that came over to my house, all my friends, they got a kick out of the fact that the credo was up on the wall of the bathroom in our house. Um, this works really well also with rules. When you have rules in the household, when you have a to-do list, a lot of times we talk about like kids have their to-do list. Us as husbands, we have our honey-do list. It's important to have those check-offs, like so that we can check things off and we make sure that we are meeting the expectations of our partner or our kids, in the case of our kids, that they're meeting the expectations that we set out for them, right? So the refrigerator is a great place to set up a checkoff list for a weekend full of chores, especially when you're not home, right? Make it easy for them. Put little boxes so that they can check them off. It always feels good to check stuff off. Um, and again, drawings and visual cues are really helpful, especially with younger children. Um, Follow through. Say what you mean and mean what you say, right? It's hard. It's hard. We love our kids. Um, and sometimes setting expectations and following through puts us in a position where we're not the popular person. We're not the cool parent. But just believe me, as someone who has um, kids that are, out of college, they will thank you for it later. Okay. Setting those expectations and making sure that you follow through, that you model those things, they appreciate it afterwards. If you establish an expectation or ask a child to do something, make sure that it is performed. Hold them accountable to things. Um, With that same token, make sure that whatever it is we're asking of them is within reason. It's reasonable. It's something that they can actually accomplish. Consistency is not easy for any human. Learning a new habit, establishing a new routine is not easy. So it's incredibly critical to stay consistent and to establish those expectations. That helps with all of that. Okay. I'm gonna go into the chat, make sure I don't have anything. All right. Establishing expectations, important points to consider. Um, I emphasize again, it's an important part of it's an important aspect of parenting. It's an important aspect of management, of work, of school. Like it's an important aspect of life, right? But it starts at home. And so I hope that the information that I'm sharing with you here uh, is driving that point home. It's very important not to overestimate or underestimate our children or ourselves, okay? We have this capability. Our children have the capacity to follow directions as long as they're clearly laid out, to follow instructions, to abide by, our family code, our family value, how we are perceived. They have it in them. It just needs to be clearly stated. And we need to start with what our children are doing right now and gradually shape their behavior to what we want them to accomplish. Okay. And this all leads to them being good students. It leads to them being, good human beings and caring about um, things other than themselves or material things. All right. Expect more and more until they have achieved goals that will allow them to succeed in all aspects of life. Right. And it's important to remind them, like the reason why we're doing all of this, the reason why I want you to carry yourself in a certain way, the reason why I want you to have these good habits is because I want you to scaffold these achievements. I want you to scaffold and build on these goals because at the end of the day, maybe the North Star is college graduation, right? Well, there are certain things that need to be met by all individuals who want to achieve that. Maybe the even bigger North Star is, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a speech pathologist. I want to be a teacher. All those things, all these things that we are laying down are going to be foundational and crucial in their development. So we also need to believe in ourselves, our ability to put all these things into action. And yes, remaining unwavering even when it's hard. Parenting is hard. Raising little people is hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I know it's the hardest thing many of you are doing, right? So be easy on yourself. Be kind to yourself, but don't waver. You are the adult, and at the end of the day, in most cases, we know what's best for our children. All right. Many of us will clearly make mistakes, and it's okay to let those slide from time to time, but don't let it become something that becomes persistent, right? Perfection is not necessarily something that is possible, but we can always reset and reinforce our expectations. We can modify our expectations. We can evolve our expectations, but they should remain expectations. They should remain um, achievable, reasonable for our children, and they'll see it. It's just a matter of consistency. Any questions in the chat or anything that I'm missing? Nothing yet. Okay, we'll keep moving along here. Um, we actually can't get through these activities. These activities would work really well if I was there. And I apologize for these. So I'm just going to skip through these, but these are some scenarios. I actually hope that they are a part of the um, parent materials, family materials, and I hope that you can actually go in there, get a chance to read them, get a chance to think these through. But they're just a couple of scenarios that as I mentioned earlier, I have a ton of slides to get through, and this just doesn't work as well as it should online as it would if I was there in the room and we could break up into groups and have a conversation. Um, in terms of differentiating and supporting our children at various stages of life, this is a good way to support for those of you that have students who are of elementary age. Um, Keep expectations simple and visual. I think I already kind of mentioned that. For little ones, pictures, stickers, morning checklists, bedtime reading. Those are routines that can be established and are really, really good for them. The less they have to think about when their day is coming to an end is to change anything drastically for them, right? So establishing routines is really, really crucial for younger children. Definitely reward at this stage of the I mean reward at all times, but here praise, small little tokens, um in the moment when they happen really, really reinforce their ability to want to continue to see these things through, right? So something as simple as like, hey, I noticed you put your backpack away right when you got home. I really appreciate that. Thank you for doing that, right? It's one less thing for mom or for dad to pick up. I really appreciate you. Something like that, it encourages them to make sure that they follow through. You want to encourage them to play, to be creative. I know that we live in a world where screen time is of a lot of value to our kids. And I'm not saying take it away because it's a part of life, but definitely encourage them to go out and play. Um, Encourage them to spend time outside. Um, and make sure that you establish some type of routine with them when they're little. Again, pictures work great. Reward systems work great with elementary school children. Once they get into middle school, involve them a little bit more in the negotiating of these rules. All right. When you allow them slight negotiations, it gives them ownership over the work, over the expectation, over the goal, and they're more likely to actually engage. Um, Make sure that in that negotiation process you establish those rules, right? Um, Clarifying what is a non-negotiable versus things that are flexible or things that might be deemed a choice. So establish that clarity, and that's where that consistency and that conciseness and that clarity becomes very important. So an example, homework must be done before bedtime. You can choose when to start, but it needs to be done by bedtime, right? And I will check it every night before bedtime. That's unnegotiable, right? So you're allowing them to kind of take ownership over that goal, but they have a time frame of when it needs to get done. Using natural consequences instead of making threatening consequences, using natural consequences. Like if you forget your homework or if you don't do your homework, uh, you're not going to necessarily deal with me. You're going to have to deal with your teacher, right? And if we want to take it a step further, you're not going to make grades. Maybe they play a sport. If you don't make good grades, you're not going to be able to play sports at the school, right? If you don't get grades, you're not going to get into the college of your dreams. So making sure that you establish that lineage of natural consequences that can occur uh, if they don't meet their goals or if they don't abide by the expectations set at the house or at their school, um, it reinforces those organizational habits, right? So getting things like planners, or just reminding them, hey, your phone is a really powerful tool. Your iPhone, if they have one, your Android, if they have one, whatever it is that they have, it's meant for more than just social media. They're actually supercomputers in your pocket, and they can help you stay organized if you use it right. Right. So having those conversations with them is beneficial to everyone. How do we support high school students at home? At this point, we shift more towards collaborative goal setting, right? So it's a little bit more than a negotiation. The ownership is already kind of established, but we talk about more directly now at this point and more directly connected to like their college um, goals and their college dreams or their career goals, their career dreams and goals. It doesn't have to be necessarily college. It could be career, it could be their passion, but you can start making those connections. Good grades equal college, typically equals college readiness, and usually equals scholarships, right? So making sure that they understand that you are there to help them through this process. But at the end of the day, it's their it's their goal setting that's going to get them there. Definitely be clear about household responsibilities. As they get older, you need to maintain that clarity. If they have chores that they have to do, or maybe it's to the point where they have a part-time job, they are going to have to start dealing with work-life, school balance, right? So be there for them. Make sure that this is a place where you might be able to be nimble and perhaps be flexible with them, especially if that part-time work is helping the household. But be clear about those responsibilities and how they evolve as they get older. Use expectations that foster independence. So making sure that you put the ownership on them, right? Like I trust you to manage your schedule. I trust you to know what's in your best interest. When it comes to school, right? I mean, not necessarily with life choices in society, but as a student or as my child here in the house, I trust you to make sure that you know what's best for you. But definitely checking in with them consistently, because at the end of the day, they do look at us for that accountability, for that reassurance that they're doing things the way they're supposed to be doing. Definitely keep open dialogue as they get older. Balance accountability with respect. That's just a no-brainer. All right, we're getting into the strategies for work-life balance. I do want to make sure that I am transparent in this space. Not the easiest conversation to have with people because I want to make sure that I'm respectful, and I don't know I don't know everybody's situation. I don't know what your work situation is. I don't know whether you're someone who works two, three jobs to put, food on the table. So I want everybody to understand that I approach these topics with the utmost respect for everybody's situation. But these are just good practices that the research shows um, should be given at least some consideration, right? And maybe it'll have you reflect on some of the choices and options that we have perhaps presented to us that we don't necessarily capture. So work-life balance. There's a video that we just don't have time to watch, so I'm gonna skip that. But I encourage you all to find it. I wonder if I can link that video. Um, Before we finish, I'll go back and I'll see if I can link that video in the chat so that you all can save it and maybe watch it in your own time. Um, what is work-life balance? So it's basically the relationship between our work, so that's our career, our job, and the other important things in our life, right? So how does our work, our life, our career, how does that when commingled with family, with sports, with social life, with the household, making sure it doesn't fall apart, with our commitments to community events, uh, our church, maybe we're a part of the PTA at our child's school, um, your child's jogathon, your child's Christmas concert, your child's um, graduation. Like all those things are important aspects of your life that need as much attention as possible for obvious reasons, but understanding, as I mentioned, I don't know what your work situation is, but it's that relationship, right? Of how much time, how you split yourself between work and all the things that might be important for you as a household. Um, Knowing the definition, why do we think something like this is important? Honestly, it's important for our children. As parents, when we have good work-life balance, we're better parents. And there isn't necessarily a complex explanation to why this is, but when we're present for our children need us, right? Our children, is even when they get older, um, being there when they need us is incredibly beneficial to their development. So, to develop, learn to thrive, our children need warm, loving attention and quality time with their caregivers, with their guardians, whoever that may be, right? So it's important for our kids. as my colleague Cuauhtemoc would say, it's for the children, right? It's for our children. So if you have good work-life balance, you're more likely to have the mental and emotional energy to give your children the attention they need, to be present in the moment when you need to be there, right? And I know it's harder, it's easier for some, it's harder for others, but it's just something that correlates. One directly affects the other. You'll have more opportunities for quality time with your children when you work at having a good work-life balance. All right. And modeling this work-life balance is healthy. It's healthy. It's a healthy balance. Um, it teach with it's a healthy balance with teachers at their school, and work-life balance is important for themselves, and especially for high school students. Okay. Um, It's important for relationships. So quality time spent together is the building block of all relationships. And that is for us in our adult relationships. It's the same with our children. It balances and it gives you time and energy to develop better relationships with your children, with your partner, and others. So you are modeling to your kids how to have a healthy work-life balance when you try to do it. Okay. So when you try hard for this, they see, my mom, my dad, they sacrificed, they took out they took an extra shift the week before so that they could take today off because today is my Christmas concert, right? Like they see those things. They learn to model those things, and they learn to see value in your sacrifice. But it has to be communicated to them as well. And that's something that can be foundationally established as a part of those expectations. All right. Um, Part of looking after yourself is making time for the things that are important to you as well, right? So um, work-life balance important for you. Um, yes, we work, and that's, we live in society where it's dependent on us being able to provide. But we have hobbies, we have passions, we have things that we like to do. I don't know, maybe some of us are in bowling leagues. Some of us like to golf. Some of us like to play baseball on Sundays, or we play rec softball in the afternoons, or we go to church, or we like to volunteer at the food share, right? Like things that are important to us. We want all of those things to be a part of our life. Um, it shows our children that we have um, value, or that we value things, that we value um, our community, that we value being a volunteer. Um, and it's important for them to see that, you're more than just work and mom or work and dad, right? Like it's important for them to see that. It validates in them that they should be involved in things, especially when they get to high school. Extracurriculars become super important for college, right? So we want to start making sure that we build those good habits. When you find a good balance, all of these things, you're likely to feel less stressed and tired. And I know that sounds easy to say, but having a good work-life balance does help with stress. Um, you're more in control of your time. You're better able to make decisions and meet commitments, and overall, you're physically healthier, right? Like a part of my work-life balance, like exercise is a must for me. That's a non-negotiable. I have to move. I have to do exercise a minimum of 6 days a week, right? And I've made the commitment to fit that in every single day. So I wake up super early at an ungodly hour. I wake up at 4:30 every morning so that I can have my time to reflect. I'm in the gym by 5:30. I'm back at home by 6:45. I get ready, I go to work, but I'm in work at the time I'm supposed to be. I'm at home with my kids, and I'm here, right? So I don't have to go to the gym in the evening. I spend the time here at home with my wife, with my kids. That's that consistency and that discipline is difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a choice that I've made, right? So to be a healthier me, and to be with my family, and to be the ones that I love, and to be able to do the things that I like and that I like doing. For me, exercise is not necessarily even a hobby. It's a non-negotiable. So a well-balanced life can actually help prevent burnout at work too. And yes, that is true. Um, And again, all of this, all of these sacrifices, all of these changes, all this intentionality, believe me, our kids are observing. They're sponges. They see you. Um, you want them to see you excel in everything that you do. You want them to say, "Oh my gosh, mom, dad, you're thriving," right? Like you look like you're doing the things that you want to be doing. They want that for themselves, right? And so they begin to see the connection between the expectations that you laid out when they were little and to what you expect them to carry out as they get older. So again, I say this respectfully because I know in some cases many of our families have to work more than one job, and at that point, work-life balance becomes a bit more difficult. Um, these are some things that talks about like, how to negotiate with yourself in terms of creating a better work-life balance. Dealing with your guilt complex. I think what they mean is basically reflect on why you need to work. Definitely reflect. I mean, we need to work because we need to provide, right? But leave making sure that you recognize um, any negative thoughts that come with the stressors of daily life. All those come and pass, right? So just making sure that you deal with whatever guilty complex you have. Be aware of emotional spillovers. I'm huge on making sure that I don't bring any work home. I try. And this was something that was instilled by my dad. My dad would tell me, mijo, el trabajo va a estar ahí mañana, right? Son, the work will still be there tomorrow. And so I took that to heart. Yeah. If I don't finish something by 5, unless there isn't a deadline at 11:59 that day that I haven't met, um, I'm gonna save it for the next day, and I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna enjoy my family. I'm gonna enjoy cooking dinner, right? So like avoid emotional spillovers. Leave whatever frustrations you may encounter at work at the door. No need to bring them in. The last thing that you want is to take out on your kids or to take out on your partner anything that happened that for the most part is typically out of your control. Okay, so fulfill your needs. As I mentioned, to me, my need is one of my basic needs is my exercise and my health, and I stick to that. That's a non-negotiable, even for my wife. When she sometimes tells me you should stay in bed so that don't wake up so early on the weekend, it's like I'll give you one day, right? The other day I'm getting up. So it's one of those things where we negotiate and we set that expectation even with one another. Outsource what you can. Do what you need to do, obviously, right? But spending meaningful time is much better than making sure the car is spotless. So, for example, instead of like spending 3 hours washing your car, uh, why don't you just grab your partner, grab the kids? It's like, hey, we're gonna go for ice cream. You know what? We're gonna make a stop. We're gonna get the car washed in the process, right? But at least you're there with your family. Make the most of it. There's always a way to make something fun of it. Go to one of those car washes that where you have to wash your car yourself, right? And make it a family affair. There's ways to make sure that you if you don't outsource, you can do things together as a family. So to that point of bundling activities, yeah, I mean, let's go wash the car, and the reward is that we spend time together and we eat ice cream, right? Simplify your life, and I know that's easier said than done, especially in the times that we're living. um, but in the race to have more, the joy of a simple fulfilling life is sometimes easily forgotten, and I think there's a huge degree of truth to that. um, Sometimes what is most important uh, in our life's pursuits is just that simplicity of being happy, right? Um, what are the ones you can do without? So think about like, hey, what's yes, we should have non-negotiables, but what can we kind of like outsource, or what can we be flexible with? That's important. Um, that's important there as well. All right, these are some tips. I know for a fact that this is in that link that Rigo shared earlier in the chat. So I encourage you to go in there and read these balancing tips. They're helpful. Um, it talks about syncing your calendars electronically, right? So if you don't, I mean, most of us probably have some type of smartphone. sync your work calendars with your phone and have everything in one space. Um, Plan you time. That's important. I think it's incredibly important that my wife goes and gets her nails done and goes and gets her facials. It's her time. I encourage her. In fact, when she doesn't get it done, I tell her, it's like, you haven't done your nails in a while, right? So, not that you have to be careful how you phrase that, but encourage them to make sure that they take time for themselves. I like to go golfing every once in a while, right? And my wife knows that that's me time. I go and I golf by myself. It doesn't need to be an activity with anybody else. It's me time. Cook and clean as a family. I think that's an incredibly important aspect that I'm thankful that my parents always instilled in us, that we all, regardless of what we did, we always ate dinner, at least dinner, one meal as a family, together at the table. And that's something that I've continued in my family. Um, I do most of the cooking, but we definitely make sure that the expectation is set that you help with the dishes. Oh, and you wash your own plate, unless you're gonna, put it in the dishwasher. So the rules remain. Do mornings before bed. I thought this one was super cool. We all know that mornings are the most hectic time in all of our lives. It's a lot of people sometimes miss. Like there's times where I miss my wife, when I go to the gym. Sometimes she's gone by the time I get back, and so I don't get a chance to wish her a good day. But every once in a while, my wife says, let's do breakfast for dinner, right? And so that's what we mean by doing mornings before bed. It's like you recreate your morning hour before everybody goes to bed, and it's super cool. I've actually definitely done this one before. Savor the time that you have together. I've kind of hit that on multiple occasions throughout this presentation, right? But the weekends are incredibly important. If church is important for you, then go to church together. If you have children that play sports, do your best to be there at least for some of their games. Uh, I have students who tell me that their parents work so much that they never saw them on the sideline of their games, and that kind of breaks my heart. But I understand the necessity that comes with it. But it's probably because they didn't get a chance to see this to hear this webinar, right? You're hearing this webinar, so I hope that the importance of this work is instilled in listening to the conversation. So again, school and finding that life balance, make sure that everything that we do always has a goal, always has a bridge or a correlation. We're setting these boundaries, we're setting these goals, so that you can be a better student, so that you can go to the college of your dreams, so that you can have the career of your dreams, right? If you ever want to come back and help your parents, so be it, right? But it's all of this has a purpose. Everything that they do has a purpose for them to be that human being that values community, that values justice, that values just the work that you do. And in many cases, perhaps I'm going to make an assumption here. Perhaps some of you as families and parents are immigrants to this country, like my parents were. And I always remind myself, right? Like they uprooted themselves from their homeland so that I could have a better life. And I made it a point, even though they never really communicated that to us. I reminded, as the oldest sibling, I reminded my brothers and sisters that we needed to honor that sacrifice. And so use that fuel, whatever it may be, to make sure that through their work and those expectations that they honor whatever sacrifice you've made for their benefit. Okay. It all always leads to them and having that good school life balance as well. Really, there's a few other things here. In terms of, it's important to make sure that you establish routines. Clearly, the homework needs to get done, study needs to get done, and believe me, as an educator, I can tell you they never don't have homework. If your son or daughter ever tells you, I don't have homework, that just means they don't have anything that they have to turn in the next day. But we always have work. They can always be studying something. They can always be reading something. So never take no for an answer. Establish that expectation that you're gonna read, even if you don't have anything you need to turn in. I need you to read for an hour. It's for your own good. Okay, so establish those things with your children at the appropriate ages. Um, Believe me, in the long run, it's going to pay off. All right, so in reflection, think about the one thing that you can start doing after today to have a better work-life balance, right? And this is something reflective for yourself. No need to type it on the chat, but just think about the things that you can address now. If there is anything that you can change about your um, time outside of the mandatory 8 to 5 work schedule, and how you better use it to make sure that you are present in that moment for those that you love. All right. And if there's one way that you can help your student have a school life balance, like what does that look like? Is it requiring them to show you their work? Is it requiring them to read even on days when they say they don't have homework, right? So think about these things. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to open the chat one last time and open myself up for questions. Does anybody have any questions? Rigo, do you have any questions? This is the end of the slide deck. I'm glad I was able to get through most of it, all of it actually. We just didn't do the activities. But I hope you've enjoyed the content, and I hope it's been of benefit to you.
Thank you very much, Sergio. I don't have any questions, but just want to let our families know that I will. I did drop the link in the chat, and I can do so one more time. Sometimes though, when you click on it, it requires you to open a new window, and depending on the device, you may not be able to see the content. But it will be shared with everybody in a follow-up email tomorrow. The recording will probably come out in the next couple days. I may even wait until Friday to send both the resources and the recording all at once, so that way it's not multiple emails in your inbox, but you will receive those resources and the recording as soon as they are available. And I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment.
Yeah, I don't see any either.
Yeah.
Oh, you're very welcome, Joy.
So I'd like to once again thank you, Sergio, for joining us, for providing this wonderful content, and parents and families, thank you for logging in this evening, for your participation, during the course of the webinar there with some of the interactive activities. If you have any questions for myself, you can definitely email. I'll send an email in a couple of days. You can reply to us there. We're open to your feedback. If you would like to see more sessions such as these, with these types of topics. The 2 sessions that Sergio has provided for us this year were kind of sparked from feedback that we got from families at the end of the previous school year, with requests for more webinars or presentations around how to support students at home. So, the 2 topics that Sergio has presented definitely do support with that, setting expectations, finding balance. Again, I think it's important for all of us. So the more feedback you provide us, and the more we can tailor what we provide to your feedback to make sure it is meeting the needs that you feel need to be met, or the resources that we can provide to support you in reaching that. So thank you again for joining in. Thank you again, Sergio.
Yeah.
I want to wish everybody a wonderful evening, and we'll look forward to perhaps having you back in the future.
Yeah, and I know we had some technological challenges the last time we tried to do this presentation. So thank you for giving me another shot and to making sure that I did this right. I'm glad technology did what it was supposed to, and it was a pleasure to be with your families today.
Thank you again, and have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Sergio.